Oh, yes, we still have a big session to return to. So we want to make sure we're on time for that, most importantly. So Smile, you are on camera. This is for our friends online. We are being recorded. So also our friends online, if you have questions, please make sure to put those in the chat. We'll make sure to address those as we go throughout the day. I first want to introduce our PBIS team members here. We have Jessica Dedick over here, Marla Peachock coming in the back, Matthew Heath, and myself, Hendrik Wolford. Thank you everybody for joining us. We're excited to have you guys today. We're going to look at our agenda just briefly, and that was super brief. So we're going to look at a few different areas, and we'll go over these in our objectives here in a second. But we'll be doing some networking, some small group work, some large group work. We'll get a break in there, and then have a closure with some updates regarding PBIS applications and updates on the SAS and TFI and things like that as well. So our objectives for today, we're going to review the glows and grows of the application process, the PBIS application process. We're going to look and explore the updates and some updates and resources. Like I said, we're going to look at the SAS, we're going to look at the TFI, and then some other updates from the state as well. And then we're going to introduce you to Dr. Bruce Perry, who is a neurodivergent educator who looks at how the brain develops in children. And we're going to learn a little bit about his work and how that applies to PBIS as well. So first, before we go too much further, we want to get a pulse of the room. So take a look at these 9 pictures up here. We've got a kid in boxing gloves and a plant sprouting and somebody looking out on the lake. I want you to think about how you're feeling right now in this moment. Choose one of those pictures and think about it to yourself. And I'm going to choose randomly one person from each table to share quickly what they're feeling and why. And then we're going to choose someone online too. So make sure you guys are ready as well. Okay. 3, 2, 1. Okay. We're gonna start all the way in the back, and we're gonna start with Mr. Case. I've known Mr. Case for about 40 years, so I got to pick on him a little bit. Yep. So, and I have to give you the mic. Yeah, I know. I got to give you the microphone too. So, okay, which one are you feeling and why?
Number 4.
Okay.
I'm a tug of war, back and forth on PBIS in the school and just in general, the students and the staff working together and not always working together. So
great. Thank you very much. All right. See, the rest of you got out of it. You're lucky. All right. I'm going to go right here.
Hi. Number 9. Just need to remember to keep breathing.
Oh, I like that. That's good. Remember to keep breathing. Just keep swimming, right? All right. There you go.
Hi, I'm thinking number 2, just because trying to grow something. I'm just at the beginning and trying to foster it and develop it.
I love it. Nice. Okay, we're gonna go right here.
I would say number 7, because all the pieces in the puzzle have to be together in order for it to work.
Nicely done. Nicely done. All right, we're gonna go back here. Don't look nervous. It's okay.
Oh, I'm not nervous. I'm not nervous. I would actually say number 6 because my position was changed. And so I'm kind of overwhelmed, let's just say.
All right. The stresses with the new position, everything that goes along with it. Absolutely. All right. All right, Christina, I'm gonna go right to you.
Okay. I would say number 4. Not with PBIS, just in life, just, trying to keep up and fight.
Yeah. As adults, we have a lot going on, right? We've got stuff going on with school and home and kids and all right. Leanne, I'm going to pick on you online if that's okay. You're the first person I see on our board.
Oh, that's a really good.
So Leanne, what picture do you relate with and why?
Mine's number 7, just because this year we're trying to fit in all the missing pieces to complete some programs that we started working on last year with Tier 2 strategies.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I think it's important to recognize that, even though we have similar backgrounds in education, we come from school districts. Obviously, we had similar mornings. We were in the large conference room this morning. We all have different feelings. Okay, we all process our emotions differently. We all process how we go about our day differently, and we all look at things differently. So I think it's important to remember that, especially in the PBIS world, you know, everybody comes from a different background and a different perspective, how they approach things. All right, man, if you want to go ahead and click on the next one here.
I would love to.
Notice we didn't have Matthew.
Yeah. Matthew would be with the one with the rock on the back of his head. All right, so we want to look at our meeting matrix. Obviously, with any PBIS initiative, we want to have a matrix. So we want to make sure that we have our expectations set. We have some up here: be respectful, be responsible, be a problem solver. Look, we're all adults in this room and online. We're going to treat you with respect. We know that you're going to be responsible. If you have to step out to take a call, step out to take a call. Just looking at that briefly, is there anything that we're missing that you guys would like us to add to this for our expectations? And if not, it's okay. Nothing? All right. So like I said, if you guys need anything, you know, feel free to, you know, like I said, if you have to step out, take a phone call or use the restroom or get some fresh air, because it'll probably get warm in here in a little bit, you know, feel free to do so. All right, so the first thing we're going to talk about are attention signals. So as we go through our activities today, we're going to be kind of up and moving around the room a little bit. Speaking with each other online. And there's going to be some points throughout the day, throughout our session, where we're going to have to bring everybody back together efficiently and quickly. So what are some ways that you have seen in classrooms, or some ways that you have used in the past or currently to get students' attention quickly in a classroom? Yes. And positively, yes. Say that again. Clapping. Okay. Can you give me an example real quick? I love it. Yep. Yep. And your reply, right? Absolutely. I love it. And again, you know, if there's anybody online, feel free to put stuff in the chat or come off of mute as well. Yes, Christina. IO, yeah. I love it. Oh, okay. So OHIO or STOP. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Any other ones? Yes. Class. Yes. Yes. Okay. That's a good one. Yes.
Yeah, see, my mom used act, but now in the junior high, so that's not like as appropriate.
Okay. Okay. So harmonica. Oh, harmonic. Yes. Okay. Anything else?
You sing anything.
If you sing anything, do you want to give us an example? Yeah.
I say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then they'll go. I say,
Okay. Yeah. And it's in a very calming voice, you know, it's very, yeah. Okay. So singing 3, 2, 1. Absolutely. You can say chicka chicka. There you go. Chicka chicka boom. And that's a good one for little ones, right? They love that book. Okay. So of these ones that we mentioned, clapping, OHIO, class, harmonic, singing 3, 2, 1. Which one would you guys like to choose for Marla to demonstrate later when she brings you back together? The singing. Uh-oh. We're putting you on the spot, Marla.
When you've shown Marla your attention, or any of us your attention, what will it look like? If you hear Marla sing, can you tell me right now, what will it look like when you hear that? What I love about it is when silent, but you also look at Marla. And that's such an important part of your attention getting better signal. Isn't just be quiet and stop talking, but it's to give attention to all the rest of it.
You want to practice? Sweet Caroline.
Bum, bum, bum. That's pretty good. All right, you can go on. All right, so when Marla sings that later, you got to be ready.
No.
No? Okay, that's all right.
We are monitoring the chat, I do promise. So Matthew's on it right now, and then we'll give him a break in a little bit here.
Some of them have been private message. So.
Okay.
All right. Absolutely.
And we really want to thank you for giving us some grace, because this is really our first maiden voyage of hybrid. We have been so used to doing everything virtually. I'm thrilled to actually see real people and hear real people. So, but thank you for the grace that you're giving us this afternoon.
Yep, absolutely. So just some elements of an attention signal, auditory or visual. You're holding up this. What's this mean? Give me 5, right? Okay. And sometimes teachers, all they need to do is do this, and the kids know, okay, I need to, eyes on the teacher, sit down, hands in my lap, so on and so forth. Make sure it's age appropriate. I'm probably not going to do chicka chicka boom boom in a 12th grade language arts classroom. I might, you never know. You might get away with like SpongeBob, SquarePants, but something that requires a response is always good. And then something that does not require a specific condition. So we're not going to go over and turn off the light or flick the lights up and down until they're not sitting down and being quiet, So it's something that you have to practice with the class and do on a regular basis so that they understand the response and they understand what the expectations are in the classroom. So for intention setting, if you could look in your notes on your note page that we shared with you earlier. And again, if you need, that is one of the QR codes on your table. There's also packets on your table as well, if you'd rather write notes down there. But at the end of the session today, what do you want to know or learn? And to achieve this, I intend to. So if you could fill out those 2 questions, well, one question and an intention. So we want to make sure that it's purposeful, so that when we are reflecting towards the end of the session, we understand, what are we looking for? What are we looking to get out of the session? And by setting these intentions, put a picture in your mind. How do you want to experience today? Okay. So again, you can either do that online, on your paper. I'll give you about 30 seconds to do that. And if you are virtual, if you could give us a thumbs up when you are all done. All right, I'm starting to see some thumbs up. Thank you very much. Okay, about 10 more seconds. All right, if you're still typing, go ahead and finish up. I'm going to go ahead and throw it over to Jessica and have her bring you into our next activity.
I believe Marla's gonna help you.
I'm just kidding. I'm going to give it to Marla.
I am gonna say, we are a little off of our time already.
Yes.
I didn't officially start our timer, so we're gonna 10 minutes for this, gonna focus down a little bit to try to keep us moving along, if that's okay.
So what we would really like to do, and I know that we have friends online, we're still going to find ways for you that you are going to do that. We have Mr. Matthew on the keyboards today that's going to help you get into with a partner. What we want you to do, because the important piece about PBIS and this network, the power of the network is what you bring to the table. The power of the network is what we all bring together collectively. Supporting our new people that just got new responsibilities, supporting the people that have been doing it for a while, but still gathering new ideas. So we're not going to do eye partners. We're going to try to find somebody who is across the room from you. I don't want you to drill into them, but I do want you to look at them, make eye contact with them, smile at them, don't grimace at them. So make some eye contact with them. And then what we're going to do, I'm going to say 3, 2, 1 in a quiet voice, not a sing-song voice this time, Sarah, but soon that will be coming. Don't ever give me a microphone and tell me to sing, because it's all over then. I want you to go up to that person first, introduce yourself to them because it's a new friend. It's a friend you haven't met yet. Remember, it has to be someone you don't know. I saw hugging earlier, so. And I want you to talk about, we talked so strongly about the importance of knowing where we want to go in the school year. Making that action plan at the end of the school year, so that way we start the school year off with a really strong foundation. So talk about 3 things you hope to accomplish this school year, or maybe even within the next few months. Did that make sense? Things always make sense in my head, but what comes out my mouth sometimes doesn't. But my online friends, are you good with that instruction? Thumbs up, thumbs down? I got 1 thumbs up, I got 2 thumbs up. Perfect. Okay, so 3, 2, 1, go find a new friend. One that you haven't hugged already. I can be your friend. I'm fine.
Welcome back, our virtual friend.
What I was sharing with our group here is the reason why we pulled that in is one of the things that we started last year with something called TFI Tuesdays. We'd like to say it was every Tuesday, but unfortunately, you know how schedules get. It was our way of sending out a consistent message across all of our counties. And our very first TFI Tuesday this year was on action planning and starting your year out right. Later on in the presentation, you'll have that link. We promise you those podcasts are usually less than 9 minutes. They're short and they're sweet. And the reason why we made them short and sweet is because we know how busy you are. So hopefully our online friends met a new friend, was able to talk about some ways that they are going to start the year out. And just curious from our audience, if I can choose, I'm going to pick on one of my Struthers friends. Let me go with elementary. Anything from your action steps that you're going to do to move forward, because that's the other power of the network. Share ideas.
Well, for our elementary school, I think we've truly built a good base for our tier 1 supports. So building up in our tier 2 and working on our selection of kids, progress monitoring of our kids, like that's our biggest goal for us this year.
And within that big goal are many little tiny steps.
Yes.
Each
Yes.
step takes us forward. Perfect. Alrighty, what about one other person? I like to at least have 2 people from our group. And we went from this side of the room, so how about if I come to this side of the room?
What are we doing?
What is an action step that you are taking and moving forward with your team that you've already discussed?
Well, we're working towards our silver status. So we are implementing more of the tier 2, 3 supports. Yeah, we've got some discipline papers out there and, tracking.
Okay. Perfect. Well, within this room is a lot of individuals that have experienced that. And there is a lot of wealth within this room that we're going to be able to support each other with. So,
Do we have an online person that would be willing to share?
oh,
Would
perfect.
any of you be willing to raise your hand to share out something that your team is working on? I see Boss is here, I see Yule is here. I feel like the romper room right now. Any brave online participants that is willing to share something they're focused on this year? I'm so sorry. Well, I figured, I keep forgetting that's not how that still works. Right, I know you're doing great things because I've definitely heard great things already.
Oh, it looks like we have somebody who unmuted.
Oh.
All right,
Hi.
Keely.
I did. I just wanted to say first, it's difficult to hear who was speaking just now.
That was my fault.
I think you were asking someone to share, and I'm happy to do that, but I couldn't hear everything that you said.
Yes, Keely, can you share something that you are doing moving forward as far as your action step on your action plan?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm not 100% sure if this answers that question, but we were talking at our last PBIS meeting about different ways to fundraise, to add to some of the student rewards, and get more input from parents and students together.
Actually, Keely, that's perfect because you just wove in the idea of family and community, which is something that we want to focus on in all of our sessions, because the more we can include our family members, the more we can include our communities, the stronger we're going to be. Thank you for being brave enough to unmute.
No problem.
So as we move forward, we always like to pull on some quote that we've seen as we were reading. And this one stumbled across actually just because I'm not sure if it was your Facebook, if it was on where it was, but it was really pretty poignant because we oftentimes talk about our scholars, our students, whether or not if they're young or if they're old, that sometimes they bring emotions with them. I know that you guys have no issues with that at all. They come ready to learn, but what we are talking about is the fact, and I'm going to give you a second to think about this. He's talking about a key to regulating emotions is to treat them like visitors in your home. I'm angry. lets a feeling take permanent residence. You're saying, I'm angry. Instead, what you want to think about is the fact that if you're hosting some anger today, it's not taking you over. That anger doesn't own you. It's a reminder that not all guests are welcome. And I guess the whole point around there is the fact that sometimes, whether or not it's us as teachers, adults as leaders, or if it's our scholars, sometimes emotions drop in without warning. And so with that, what we really want you to take along with that is the fact that Dr. Bruce Perry, who I feel like I know him, and hopefully you are going to love him as much as we love him, starts talking about the power of regulation. Regulation in us, as well as regulations in our students. So keep that in mind. That's sort of going to be a theme that runs throughout, because we cannot do anything if we are not regulated. So which takes us actually into our next piece, which we're going to just briefly touch upon the idea of, as our applicants were sending things in, and even though we didn't review any of our PBIS binders from our region, we actually got to review binders from Columbus and Parma. I think those are the two major ones. And we saw some themes, and we wanted to share the two major themes, a couple grows and a couple glows. Jessica?
Thank you, Marla. So as Marla said, the PBIS recognition applications, I know some of you are familiar with that. This year, those were scored outside of our region. We did have the opportunity to score other ones. We did try to take an opportunity to review those of you who did submit, to review your evidence prior to try to give you some assistance with that. But unfortunately, we weren't able to actually score our home region evidence. But from the evidence that we were able to kind of browse across the region, I actually, I'm going to focus on the glows first. Is we're starting to see more teams that are including families, which is what Marla was just tying in there. Actually, what Keely was just tying in there. We're seeing more of that, of those teams that really want to incorporate families into their discussion. And we realize how vulnerable you have to be to open that door to families, because sometimes those conversations are challenging, and sometimes we struggle to be regulated in those conversations ourselves because we have so much on our plates and there's so much going on. And we feel like that person with their head on the computer and a boulder on top of them. We completely understand this. But setting aside that and truly valuing the lens that a family member brings, that lens of somebody on the other side of those walls receiving this information and giving them some input into your PBIS framework, is so incredibly valuable. So while we do understand that it has taken some teams longer than others, we're starting to see that trend in a positive direction. And with that, also students, they're the ones experiencing this. So more teams we recognize are inviting students into those conversations, and it looks so different depending on the different minutes that we were reading. And sometimes they're directly in the meeting, and sometimes their voice is brought in other creative ways. So it was really refreshing to see the teams are expanding, I feel like, across the state. So we definitely want to celebrate that. Some of the grows that we noticed across all of the applications that we were able to kind of score is those data discussions being memorialized. So we see a lot of teams that are bringing data to their meetings, which is fantastic. So we're looking at the discipline referral data, suspensions, expulsions, those big ones. We see some teams that are bringing in attendance data as well. Some have even gone the full spectrum, and they're adding, clinic visits, they're adding academic grades, they're adding all of those other data points to really get a better picture of the whole child. But we're not always seeing, what are you doing about it? We're not always seeing those next steps. So we'll see some analysis taking place. So we notice there's an increase in the 5th grade boys, or we'll notice an increase in the 7th grade East hallway or something like that. But we don't always see those, what are we going to do about it? How do we plan to address this? Or we don't see then, okay, last month we noticed 7th grade East wing was really rough. We put this plan into place. How did it go? When can we celebrate what actually worked? The decrease in the seventh. Let's look at that seventh grade hallway. Did it improve? Because let's replicate that somewhere else. And we know sometimes those decisions are being made, but there's so much value in memorializing those discussions and memorializing those decisions because it keeps you accountable. It really makes sure that you're following through with whatever those actions are, and that we don't just assign the team all of those actions, but we assign a specific person to communicate the plan or to implement that plan, and then making sure that we then follow back up. How did it work? Was it successful, or is this still an ongoing trend? And what did we try before that didn't work? So that's something that we believe could be a growth area across the state, is just really documenting some of those decisions, and not just for the application, not just for recognition, but really to improve student outcomes. And that's really the be all end all of the whole application process, is really to refine our process. Yes, it is a fancy recognition, it's a fancy award, and we do value it, but at the same time, it's really about stepping up your framework and improving your student outcomes, quite honestly. But with that, we are gonna go back into that regulation mindset as we kind of try to re-regulate ourselves. As you know, Marla mentioned here at our team, we have fidgets because even as adults, we all regulate in different ways and we all recognize it. So these are the staff fidgets that we use at our different staff meetings. We have a wonderful early child mental health consultant that works with us to help us recognize when we need a moment. Are we bothering you?
No.
Okay. Okay, sorry.
Cool over here. I mean, people wise, can't have choice. They're really hot.
So I'm so sorry for our online participants. Our neighboring on the other side of our wall is sweating, and we'll have fans next time. I'm so sorry. Speaking of regulation, so again, just recognizing we as adults sometimes struggle with this. So imagine our younger scholars and their lack of the ability to re-regulate, and how vital that is. And we're not giving out excuses, but we are explaining sometimes those behaviors that we see. So Matthew's going to take us into the amazing work of Dr. Bruce Perry. So we really hope that this is something that is really relevant to where you are right now that we're at that point where the honeymoon's kind of over for most of our everybody, for all of the people in the building. So we're hoping that this is what you need right now. Matthew? I can stand here now.
So good luck. Thank you. And hi, everybody out there virtually. Leanne, Joe, Kathy, Teresa, Keely, thank you. So yeah, so you've heard already a lot about Dr. Bruce Perry, who apparently Marla has a professional crush on. That was just revealed today. I know she didn't come to terms with it, but I think that's the underlying, thing here is that she's crushing on Dr. Bruce Perry. So Jessica, that was a great lead in with you talking about regulation, because that's basically what Dr. Bruce Perry's, his whole model is based on, right? So Dr. Bruce Perry, psychiatrist. If you look online, it'll say American psychiatrist. I don't know why that matters. So I left that out. But believe it or not, Dr. Perry was actually one of the first to study trauma and its effects on the brains. So sort of the pioneer with trauma, and his whole neurosequential model is based on, and it's not a strategy. It's not a program. It's simply just a model of looking at the brain and how the brain develops. So what he says is, and he'll get into this and he'll talk a lot more about it, but basically he says that the brain develops sequentially, and it actually develops from the bottom up. So up here, your cortex, you got your middle brain, bottom brain, all these other things. The issue is when trauma, stress, distress, when any of those things happens in the life, either of an adult or a child, it affects the brain. And it does have lasting effects on the brain. So even though we've got Adam Grant's quote about, don't let some things live in you. Sometimes things are living in you, right? Sometimes things happen to you that live in you forever. Those have effects on our brain. So he just looks at the development of the brain, how that affects students, and what that means for educators. So with no further ado, we're going to hear Dr. Bruce Perry talk about the neurosequential model.
The neurosequential model in education is basically it's an approach that brings certain core concepts about the way the brain works into educational settings. Now, that it's interesting that it's been framed as a trauma-informed approach, which it is, but the reality is it has universal application across the entire spectrum of children, whether you've had no adversity or a lot of adversity. And, they're really teaching people about how the brain processes information, what are the circumstances by which we learn optimally, what are the most effective ways to shape behavior. Things like that are universally applicable, and that's kind of what we do with this model. One of the things that we teach with the neurosequential model is a very simple way to think about this. And it basically is that in order to get to the cortex, to be able to reason with somebody, you first need to be connected with them in some way, relationally connected. And so that's kind of the middle part of the brain. But before you can sort of effectively connect with somebody, there has to be at least a minimal degree of regulation. So a very dysregulated kid who's afraid is not going to be able to successfully be engaged. And if you can't engage them to sort of be with you in this moment, they're certainly not going to be able to cognitively learn anything. So we talk about this sequence of engagement: regulate, relate, and then reason. And one of the things that we see that happens all the time, both with parenting and coaching and teaching, is that all too often we adults try to reason with somebody before they're regulated. And of course, that never really works. I mean, all of us, probably had the experience of somebody, coming up to us when we're sort of frustrated and saying, calm down. And as you well know, that very rarely works. In fact, it usually escalates you, makes you feel even more dysregulated. So the fundamental principle of this neurosequential model is to appreciate that the brain is involved in learning, the neuro part. Sequential is that the processing and development of the brain is sequential. And then really the third part is that you have to adhere, you have to follow the rules. You have to follow the rules of the biological organization of the brain if you're going to be successful in parenting, teaching, coaching. I think one of the most important things that educators need to understand about the brain is the way the brain processes incoming information. And the reason that's so important is that the human brain is basically organized in a hierarchical way. So there's kind of a bottom part of the brain, a middle part, and then the top part. And the top part is an area we call the cortex. And I think most everybody's heard of that. And the cortex is the most uniquely human part of the brain. And all of the networks up in the cortex are the systems that help us learn language. They're responsible for sort of autobiographical memory. They're responsible for the ability to think about the future, to think about the past, and essentially every topic that an educator will teach has to get to systems in the cortex. And so really the job of the educator and the job of the coach and the job of the parent and the job of anybody who wants to sort of change the human part of the brain is to get to the cortex. Now the dilemma is that when I talk with you, the sound waves are translated into pattern neuronal activity that go into lower parts of the brain. And then they get processed, and then they go to the middle part of the brain, and they get processed, and then they finally get to the top part of the brain. And so you don't automatically teach by having a really good thing in the teacher's cortex that immediately gets into the cortex of the child. And so what you have to do is get through the middle part of the teacher's brain, the lower part of the teacher's brain, out into space, into the lowest part of the student's brain, into the middle part of the student's brain, and then finally up to the cortex. So there's a lot of places where that can go wrong. And the reason educators need to understand a little bit about stress, distress, and trauma is that all of those things will interfere with that process in ways sometimes subtle, but sometimes in really extreme ways. You may have a child who comes into the classroom who's very well regulated. Their stress response system is completely normal. And what that means is when they're sitting and listening in a classroom that's predictable, consistent, the teacher's kind, and their cortex is open for business, which means that the teacher will successfully be able to get through sort of that, that obstacle course to get to the cortex. But if somebody has a history of trauma, the stress response system will be abnormally activated, and that will shut down the cortex so that even if you're a really good teacher, the incoming input, the words and the nonverbal cues and all of the things that you use to teach, they're going to get short-circuited on the way to the cortex, and that child will not learn as much.
I remembered to turn the mic on. So if you wonder, I'm standing right in the middle. If you wonder why I came at you like I was shot out of a cannon, because I'm really like a squirrel in traffic today, because I'm just waiting for things like that to happen with something somewhere. So what I forgot to tell you about Dr. Bruce Perry, if you're a fan of Oprah, he and Oprah have written a book. We've actually have it up here. A few of us have read it. What Happened to You? He's also written a book called The Boy Who Was Raised by Dogs, or The Boy Raised by Dogs. He's done several talks on PBIS, some of them sponsored by the Department of Education. And if you liked his approach, because we do, Raised as a Dog. So I just love his approach to talking about what really are complicated things, because he makes it so applicable, right? I mean, to me, I feel like when he speaks about this stuff, I feel like I can now relate to it, and he does a really good job of relating it to us as adults. You might see a student do this, but as adults, we do the same exact thing, and it's acted out this way, such as calm down, right? How many times has one of your significant others, parent, guardian, whatever, told you when you were maybe in a fit of rage to just calm down? And what's it usually do? Yeah, it certainly doesn't de-escalate me. That's just my personal experience. But that does lead me to our next sort of activity. So those videos, this resource, we're going to keep going back and forth between those for the remainder of the year. We want to share those with you. We want to share this resource with you because all the things that Dr. Bruce Perry talked about as far as, right, regulate, relate, reason, we're going to help you with those. We want to give you the tools. We want to have those conversations and then give you the tools and the time. And that's why we want to extend it out through the rest of the year, because this is actually a 38-page document in which we're only going to look at 5 pages today. And you're going to do that in groups anyways. So that leads us to our next activity, unless I forgot something. And I think Marla's going to lead us through that. No, I just meant maybe I forgot something out of my notes, but I know.
So Marla, please take us on to our next activity.
So one of the things that we started thinking about when we started planning is oftentimes you get theory, but you don't get time to practice. And we know that you're so busy that oftentimes we give you resources, but you don't have time to dive into it. And then now even looking at my watch, we have only till 2:30. So we're going to probably have to shorten this a little bit. But what we wanted to do is actually give you time to look at this, because I don't know if you're like me. I do get great resources, and sometimes I really want to do something with it, but I didn't have time to find what I wanted to do with it. So what we are going to use, I didn't print this out for you because it doesn't make sense to do that, but I wanted to show you what it would be like, because inside of it has so many live links. And we do know that there's a couple links that may be broken right now, but there's such a wealth of information. And as you look around the room, if you could advance to the next slide so that way they can see, it's actually divided up, and it's a beautiful resource that if you see someone that's struggling with something, like saying maybe they don't have clear expectations in their room, awesome resource. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Maybe they need a little bit of help with planning relevant instruction. It doesn't have everything, but it has a nice launching pad for you. Maybe they need to know how to develop those positive relationships that Dr. Bruce Perry was talking about in order to open up that cortex and allow the relevant instruction to come through. So I'm not going to give you all of the information. I want you to find out some of this. We're going to divide up into groups of 5, and our online friends are going to be divided up into, how many are there? 11? 12? 13? 9? If they could be divided up to maybe 2 groups so that they can be given a section to look through. So the very first thing I want you to do is be able to access this document. It is on your note page. If you aren't able to access it, be with somebody in your group is going to have access to it. But we also want to make sure that you have access to it so that way you can take it and use it. That's part of your intention settings. What will you do with this information tomorrow? How can you move it forward tomorrow? So, can you what? Can you dance?
Can I add something?
Yeah, well, I'm not sure.
I need the mic though. So I know Marla sort of said this and or alluded to it, but I really want to challenge you to look, when you're looking at this resource and you're looking through these strategies, whichever ones that you're assigned to, really challenge yourself to look at this and ask yourself, does this help regulate a student? Does this help relate to a student? Or does this help reason with a student? Got it? It's yours. Take it.
The other saying that Dr. Bruce Perry says that I so love, and I never thought until today I had a crush on him, but I guess I do have a crush on his brain, is he says, you too, a dysregulated adult. A dysregulated adult cannot regulate a dysregulated child.
You mean if I'm out of control, if I've lost my temper, I can't help a student gain his?
No, because you yourself are not using your prefrontal cortex, you are using your animal brain. Okay, so what I need for you to do around the room, and the one thing I failed to do, I'm not going to put it on my teammates, is I didn't put numbers on them, but I have them in the order that they are in the book. So 1 is over here. If they didn't fall down off of the wall since yesterday, 2 should be there. 3 is back there. 4 is over there, but whoever gets 4, you might want to move it onto the whiteboard so that way you can write neater, because that's bumpy. And 5 is right here. For my online friends, you actually have an online document on your note page for you to take notes on. The very first thing you are going to actually do when you get to your group is choose a role, because I need someone to be the reporter, someone to be the recorder, and someone to be a timekeeper, because I am horrible at time. I admit it, I'm working on it. And then what you're going to do is review the information. It's really just short. You only have 1 page to look at. And then you're going to discuss the value. Where does this fit for you? Take what Matthew said. Where does it fit in that wonderful, I'm going to say continuum whether or not we're relating to a student. What are they again, Matthew? Relate. You're gonna be traffic. Squirrel. Regulate, whether or not we're gonna regulate, we're gonna relate, or we're going to reason. Say those three with me one more time. We're gonna. Guess what? The brain needs you to repeat in order to remember. So what do you have to do to remember? Thank you so much. All right, so if I can have you start here, here's the hard part. You must remember what number you are counting off by. So starting with 1, you're going to count off to 5. And then as soon as we get to the end, don't move yet. As soon as you get to the end, I'm going to say, okay, 1's find your place, 2, find your place, 3. This room is tight, so please be kind and push in your chair and make sure there's no danger around your table. Okay, starting right here.
1, 2,
3.
Marla, can you assign the virtual people so I can sit there?
You may assign them.
Like midpoint.
Okay.
But no, like, which one do you want this way or this way? I know. I'm like,
So
How about I-
4,
Me 4.
5,
Oh,
5.
Okay. There's only 4 things. 3, 4.
5, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4,
Oh, you.
5. 5. Yes.
Okay. 2, 3, 4, 5, 1.
And our folks online, we're getting you guys organized into groups right now. So we'll get you.
Okay, 1 raise your hand.
Your room name is your assignment. And the rooms are being opened right now.
Go over there. You are the Welcome back, my friends. Thank you for joining us. Hopefully you had a good time in your room. And I hear from the infamous Jessica that we have a volunteer out there that wants to go first. I'm not sure which room it actually was now because I can't tell.
I know that. Oh, microphones work. I know that the group that was doing the first page 11, I believe, I know that one of you had to head out, so we wanted to give you the opportunity to share first. So forgive me now, I forget everybody's names was in that very first room that was page 11 or 1.1 or whatever it was. Would you guys be willing to share your takeaways?
Sure. So we had to do look at the designing a safe environment, and it was broken down into 5 items. There was the layout, the furniture, materials, accessibility, and visuals. And then it broke down and gave examples what to do in elementary schools or the primary and the secondary schools. The layout talked about you got to set your room up to what your needs are. So do you do a lot of small group or whole group, or maybe do you have to have the layout to accommodate for some learning centers? The furniture talked about you need to allow for proximity, but we also need to make sure that there can be smooth movement throughout by students and by the teacher. The materials stress that all our materials should be neat, orderly, and ready. Accessibility, obviously we all do this, but you need to look at the unique needs of all of your students when you're creating your materials. And then visuals, depending on what you teach, are they supporting critical content and learning practices? And so what can we do with this tomorrow? We can all just take this and look at our own classrooms to start off with and see how we're doing with the layout and the furniture and the materials and visuals, and go from there, make changes when we need to.
Thank you so much for sharing, Stacy. That was very well said, and we appreciate your bravery sharing with this hybrid audience. While we have our online friends sharing out, would the other room be willing to share out your takeaways from your page 12 of the documents?
I think we were page 12. So we had established the positive connections. And our critical features were purposeful communication. And I thought that word purposeful was huge. We do communicate with our parents, but what is our intent and are we consistent? Regular opportunities, learn about our students. And we love the idea about surveying students before they even start school. Through COVID, a lot of our parents have become very tech savvy. So we do communicate a lot through Dojo, and we use Google Forms. We could easily do that before school started. That's a way to learn about them, engaging our families, and then finally that validate and affirm. We also thought there were great resources as well that would be really good to share with the staff. All things that I think you know about, but sometimes when you have the opportunity to sit down and revisit them, you can look at them in a little bit of a different way.
Thank you so much, ladies. That was beautifully said because it is so true. There probably isn't anything in here that we haven't thought about, but sometimes when we don't have that time to reflect or so many things are coming at you, for example, the squirrel in the traffic, we forget things that are common knowledge. So this resource can hopefully help you remember those things. So how about if we go with designing a safe environment? Who is our reporter over there? Thank you so much. I'm coming over there with the microphone. Thank you, Hendrik. I was moving, not fast enough.
We had very similar answers to what they had online, but I'll go over ours too. The way you set up your classroom sets the stage for everything. Inclusive for all students to learn, accessibility for all, visuals for support. We know kids sometimes see things better than maybe hearing them. So we want to make sure we implement all of those. Intentional placement of materials based on grade and needs. So we were talking about if you're a science classroom, you might have tables or groups of desks, where if you're an English classroom, she has them in two so they can have good conversations with the two of them. So just make sure you're doing that to make sure your classroom is the way it needs to be. And then what we can do tomorrow is just, we can look at our classrooms and you can always do a reset. You know, some people will change a couple student seats and that calls attention to them, where where you could just say, hey, it's a Monday, we're all changing seats because the seats weren't working out before. So you can come in fresh and get brand new seats there. So just doing a little reset, and then they won't think anything of it.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. And sometimes you don't even have to admit that it wasn't going well. You can just say, hey,
Right.
I want to change the seats up.
Yeah, we don't want to tell the students. We're
Yeah.
just saying, hey.
Hey, we're doing it. And remember, Dr. Perry said one of the important things is to be safe. They have to have a feeling of safety. And for those of you that were actually with us from the original PBIS training, there are 4 magic words that I've always said: safe, positive, predictable, and consistent, with the overarching of relationships. Those are critically important. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Okay, coming back over to establish positive connections. And I know it's my lovely friend from up north.
All right, so we talked about this document being high value because it applies to all school levels. We talked a lot in our group about it's really easy for the elementary school like the elementary school teachers do a really nice job. They connect with all their kids, they make sure they're there, and it kind of falters as we get higher. So just trying to figure out ways to bring that to the junior and the high school. Making sure we take this information. This document was very well written with the links to the certain pages to take that back to our PBIS teams. And then we have a friend who's from the charter school. So she said she doesn't have one, so take it to all staff members would be appropriate. We're gonna create a list of suggested methods to contact families, email, calls, dojo, etc. So there's really some good suggestions there, and making sure we release that to our team. A lot of things we talked about were, you have open house and you want everybody to be there, but then they can't because of transportation or they're working. So finding different methods of getting that information to them so you're getting all your audiences, especially our ESL communities that are growing.
Thank you. You said so many things, but the one thing that you really said, no, so many powerful things, but the one thing that you did say is many documents oftentimes do a focus of only elementary or only a focus on high school. This one really was a wonderful document that allowed you to see many different lenses. It didn't have our early learning as that we need to, so that maybe, Emily, that's our next step. We need to add another column. Okay. Developing predictable routines. Thank you, Debbie.
So we decided that this was a good way for students to regulate, just so they know what's expected and expectations. Really letting them know what they need to do and how it looks. What does that look like? So we give examples and non-examples. This is what, when we walk out to a fire drill, this is what it looks like. This is what we should do. This is what we should not do. Riding on the bus was another example. We have some principals here, so you can tell. But in your classroom too, what does it look like to answer a question, to raise your hand if you're working with little guys? They don't know that necessarily, walking on a line. This should be front loading. So we're teaching them at the beginning before we need to use it. We're modeling it all the time. And we need to have buy-in from the teachers and students. They need to, especially when you get into the middle school and high school, help develop those things. They need to have a part and a say in it because we're doing this as a team. So I think, as I know in our school, it made me think I really need to take this back to our PBIS team and say, what are some of the things that we're not doing and some things that we can use and put in our procedures just so we know, and then share that out with the teachers. Anything else?
Okay. Thank you so much. You hit on so many different topics. I love the fact both of these teams talked about bringing it back to their teams. And then you said something else that was so powerful. Oftentimes we think about our matrix as something that we do to people. But you brought out something very interesting. We need to do it with them. We need to be able to discuss, what does it look like and sound like and feel like? Because we have to realize that our changing cultures and changing environments and all the things that have happened to us, I always hate saying in the past 2 years, but it really has changed the way we look at things. And we have to remember that sometimes the things that are on our matrices may not fit every culture. So that's why getting voice, getting different perspectives, bringing people with you instead of doing it to them. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, number 4, defining teaching positive. Oh, thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. Ours, we also did note that we liked that it had elementary, secondary. We like to see that. And then we looked at Where was it the same? Where was it different? Did it overlap and stuff? For similarities. But so 3 to 5 school class expectations for defining and teaching positive expectations. We just talked about the importance of make them, don't get too lengthy. Don't go beyond that. When you go beyond that, it just starts to be, so you really got to fine tune. You got to have buy-in from everybody that those are the 3 to 5 school district expectations. Then we said, taking it into the classroom, again, that ownership piece, it's good to have the teachers. You need to have your staff on board. Someone that was in our group, and I don't see him right now, was even just saying that he sees from teacher to teacher, like he really sees the payoff when you have a teacher that buys in wholeheartedly and, was doing different things at the beginning of the year to set the stage, coming up with the expectations, having the students make posters and all of that. And the kids really like own it more when they're a part of it. Even if it takes some time, it really pays off in the long run. So we just said it's a collaborative effort between the staff and students. And then, we were even thinking like, okay, from the school and the families, it should be collaborative with all the stakeholders. Teaching and modeling your expectations obviously is huge, but you need to do it regularly and then refer back to the matrix. It's not like a one and done. So it's always good to do like a reset as needed, or definitely just reference it continually. It should be like more of a mindset and a way of life, a way of school community life.
The way we do business.
And just something you could do. I mean, I know like in my role that I could do tomorrow, just when I go into my districts to support, kind of do an audit, kind of see where are we at with these things. Everybody's a month or more into the school year. Have we done our lessons? Have we taught them? I know I developed up with some schools, like what the different lessons would look like. So just where are we at with actually teaching them?
Okay, thank you so much. You said a lot of things again, but that teach and model expectations. We don't learn things the first time around. And I know one of my friends in this room knows how many times they need to hear something, Angel, before we actually do it and know it from memories. And then when we do something and we don't do it right, guess what our brain does? Yeah, it sets us back. Okay, finally. Okay, Hendrix is. Okay, Sarah.
Okay, so our section was on planning the relevant backgrounds. I think that that's difficult sometimes. And sometimes those are tough conversations with, let's say teachers, for example, if we're going over our lesson plans, we're starting to look at those just at grade levels in our elementary school and just being specific to grade level. But now we really want you to dig a little deeper. And, I think that it does need to change or evolve. I think that's what we were saying over here, that maybe you took stock and inventory to create those lessons, but maybe your class dynamic changed, or maybe your population changed. And in our district, that's changing all the time. So it's a reflection on the teacher. And I think maybe it starts at the top. It's a reflection on administration, then the teacher, because like you said in one of the groups, Marla, we have to sometimes look at our matrix and think, is this the best fit for our kids coming in and how they grow up and adapt to life? So maybe incorporating choice, we talked a little bit about, thinking about differentiating if we need to or when we need to. At the secondary level, how could we look at modeling? If we don't have that modeling within the teachers, maybe can we outsource and have other people coming into our district? Sometimes that doesn't work. We got to get a lot of standards in. We have to use that if it's a high school, 45 minutes of instructional time. But are we able to have some spokesperson or people come in from other cultures to help set that modeling tone for our kids and the diversity that's often needed? So that was a lot. Sorry.
I can't thank you enough for synthesizing these 5 pages the way that you did. And hopefully the synthesis will actually help you move forward. This is just a beginning of us diving into resources to help you move forward. And I think what you said, all of these conversations can be a little hard, especially if you're trying to support someone who's having difficulty, especially if you're trying to support somebody who doesn't believe they're having difficulty. But that's why we have a team. And that's why we work through this together. And again, remember, the power of the network is what you bring to the table. What do you bring into this space? What can we bring into the space for you? So before you go back to your seat, say thank you to your friends. Come back to your seat quickly. I think I have the first.
I know, I have a lot.
I know. Yes. Yeah. We know that we only have about 3 minutes left because we know we need to get you back into the main session. So what we're going to do for you is these next pieces, we're going to record them and send them to you. But on your presentation, all of those images are live links. They will take you out to certain materials. And then even our last section where we ask you to go back to your intention, you can still do that piece in the next session, because it doesn't do us any good if we don't take this information and do something with it. So what can you do with it? So we want you to revisit your intention and decide what will be your next action step? What will you do to move forward? So again, we will record this. On your note page is that section to revisit it. But we also need from you something very important. On your desk is actually little Post-it notes. And if you need to, what we'd like for you to do is, you know how we said matrices need your voice in them too? We want to know, is there something you need from us? Do you need different materials? Do you need something else to guide you? Do you need different types of fidgets? What? We can't give too many things, mind you. We don't have unlimited budget, but if there's something that will help you in this space, let us know. Or, well, this space. Remember, this space is encompassing all. What do we need to bring to you? And then we also ask you, always think about what you will bring to this space. And I can't thank you enough for you being present with us today. So we did ask for you to provide us with a little feedback. It should give you the option to choose PBIS networking. Hopefully it's doing that right.
And this is also how you will get your certificate.
For this session. And then once you are done, if you can just straighten up your table a bit, we'll see you back in the main session. Our friends that are online, hopefully you are able to get access to our survey. And if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to reach out to us or send us a message.
Oh, no.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, no, so thank you for putting up with us today.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you, because everything that you
Don't say anything that could go wrong, but did go wrong.
no, well, it went wrong yesterday, so it was better yesterday than today. But this was our first experience with doing this hybrid. We really appreciate your patience for the people that are in the room with us, as well as the people that are here with us virtually. So Kelly, Kathy, Terry, you don't count. Jessica, neither do you. Leanne, Joe, Stacy. I don't want to forget anyone. Leah, everybody that's online. And I'm trying to scan to see if I'm missing anyone.
Fives to them.
No, you
Apologize for that.
but thank you all. Hopefully your experience wasn't too traumatic, and you will definitely be joining us October 26th for our next network. So thank you. Hopefully it comes out better the next time, because I know I just butchered that a little bit. But thank you all.